So just from what we've got on the screen, I'm logging on here. Nautilus is web-based. It's not an app. It runs through all browsers, so you can log in on any system, any device, home or in school. You can see here I'm starting on the dashboard. This shows my current year so far, and I've got some analysis and some reports and things already going into the system, just really from the 1st of September. And if I uncheck that, I can see everything. So all of the activities that we've done over time, and I can apply filters here by subject, send, and everything else, and we'll take a look at that shortly. But really, the key thing is that everything is in one place. So as I start to come through my raft of different learning walks and learning snapshots and book studies, you can see them listed here. We've got a little bit of analysis, but it's very light touch. It's not intended to be a data package. And as we start to key in here, things like art, it brings those up, and send and things like that, just so that everything is accessible. And that's a really important thing because David, you always mention the idea of that string of things on the server and being able to kind of draw upon those things.
Yeah, I'm still haunted by school servers with my other work I'm doing, but it's you go into any school and there's a T drive. There's always a T drive, and in the T drive you've got your subject area folders. In your subject area folders you might have term folders. In those you might have evidence or weekly or pictures, and just they're all over. They're there. Yep. And your individual subject leaders or leaders in school know where they are. But as a head teacher, for me to get an overview of that is an absolute nightmare. I've got to spend an hour going through various different channels to find things. And having things in one place is kind of the key for me to be able to work efficiently and for my team to be able to work efficiently whilst keeping the accuracy high. So it's a tricky business, the school server.
Yeah, we'll come back to that dashboard because I want to sort of share the reports and show you what goes in at the back end. But just by way of kind of how we're going to work through the platform today, the 3 orange buttons are all about the activities, doing things, adding leaders, learning walks, whatever it may be. The blue buttons, that's the back end. So the analysis, the data, the reports, all of that in one place, which is really what head teachers talk to us all the time about. The biggest challenge is the fact that they've got all of these things across the server, and we can relate to that. We'll also take a look at the gallery, where we can submit photos, we can tag them as we're doing a learning walk with our devices. We can then use those to promote and sort of share expectations in school. And then the builder. So that's a big disclaimer because that's an editing suite. So you can create your own content, you can share content, you can edit our content, which I'll show you in a moment. And we've got schools in Wales where they're creating content in Welsh and sharing it across schools in communities, and that's really interesting how the platforms kind of worked in that sense. And then we'll come back to the end and I'll show you some of the settings, the support, and all of the additional features, like the communities. Obviously, today's webinar, we've got lots of ones for subject leaders, newsletters, so on, things like that, as well as costings and anything else, work so that we can support and help if you feel like that's helpful. So starting on the left-hand side, and I'm just going to kind of fly through this really quickly. I've added my team of leaders here. So you can see I've got all of my staff, and then you can see that I've assigned them the subjects as well. And that helps me, not subjects and aspects. That really just means that I've got all my internal leaders, but you'll see here I've checked boxes and I've got external partners. So when we talk about sort of working, developing leadership in school, let's not forget we've got those wider networks. We don't charge per user, so add as many people as you like. And we say really, this it's pro collaboration, isn't it? We've brokered those relationships so we can add 3 Senkos and the English lead from the school down the road, or 4 heads. So when you do a learning walk or anything else, invite your colleagues in, do them together, and it validates what you do. You get that external validation. It ramps up the credibility, And for example, I know in Wales, there's lots of assigned sort of school improvement partners working to kind of validate SEFs and things like that, as there are in our schools, who sort of in England, who will be working in the same way. So add those to the system, advisors, local authority, whatever it may be. And that just sort of gives you a more robust approach, and we can leverage and use that. And when we do a book study, for example, we can do some moderation with an external partner if writing is our priority, and we can tackle that together. So we've got something in hand really to be able to do, and again, take advantage of those relationships. And we can add people nice and quickly to the system, and we can assign them responsibilities and everything else. We can also manage it in a way, by the way, priority user gets access to everything, so that's a head. So it depends on what your role is, what you're accountable for. So a head teacher can see everything, or a deputy or an exec head, for example. A leadership user can see their subject, their responsibilities, and it might be multiple, so it could be science and DT. A user just contributes to the process, doesn't need to see the data. Could be, like I say, your English lead from the school down the road. So we're building these teams to begin with, and the key principle here is that we're utilizing all of that expertise. And we've all worked really hard, but I always go back to it, when I was a head teacher, quite often the meetings that I had, I wasn't very satisfied with them. I had 8 head teachers who were incredibly experienced, and we were discussing the cost of coaches to the swimming pool. So really being able to kind of invite them in and do some drop-ins and things like that, very light touch, was really a really sort of significant step in being able to kind of validate what we were doing in school. So we could tap into that there. So moving across from left to right, into the create area, I'm going to create a learning walk here, a learning snapshot. So David, as I key this in, do you just want to sort of talk through what I'm doing in setting this up and how I'm setting it up specifically as we go along?
Yeah, so setting these up, you don't feel that on Nautilus you've got to have these set up at a certain point. You can do this as you progress through your leadership year. See, David's looking at observation, Key Stage 2 English, autumn 23, possibly 2024, but we'll let you get away with that, David.
Oh, sorry.
It's nearly 2025 soon. Can you believe that? Wow.
It's like the kids when they write things on the board and they always put down yesterday's date, don't they? Or if the teacher hasn't rubbed it out and changed it yet.
That's it. And so you see there in the subject survey, we'll look at that a little bit later as well. You've got a whole host of different things. The learning walk, we've called Learning Snapshot because it's really swift, quick, and light touch, and will give you that efficiency. The subject, we've chosen English. We've got tags. Now, tags are really important in Nautilus because it allows you to really drill down and focus on things that are important to you, because we know all schools are different. We call things different things. We've got different focus maybe, and you can put in here whatever you want, as long as you are consistent in what tags you choose to use. Mm-hmm. David's looked at Key Stage 2. It could be adding writing. We could be looking at expected standard. Oh, it's just gone there. EXP for expected. And we've got the date there. We are using the evaluation statements, which you'll see what they are once we go in. And we're going to not select the stars, which is your 1 to 4 star rubric, because we have running through the whole of Nautilus a rubric that's working in the background, and we will show you how that works in a second. Once you've selected the actual and you've created the learning walk, you can click on it in your list and you'll be able to add the observers. So this is where you assign this activity. Number 1, you'll be assigning it to yourself as an observer, okay? And then you'll be looking at who you'll be visiting, and you can select the teachers that will already be on the list for you. So you can see David there, he's the head teacher called Jules Verne in this account, and he's going to visit the 4 teachers you can see there. And at that point, you can leave that and come back to it tomorrow, next week, whenever it'll stay there. And in your next orange button that you can see, which is the walks button that David's clicked on there, we get to see our to-do list that has been populated with these 4 visits that you're going to be doing. and it'll just give you an overview there of which teacher you'll be going to see. And whenever you are ready, you can select that teacher and walk into the class. So this has been designed so that you can use it most effectively on a tablet or an iPad, although it'll work with a laptop or anything that you'll have. And you can select to enter that classroom at any point here. And it doesn't have to be in that order, top to bottom. You can select anyone you wish, and you can go in.
Can I just make a suggestion? I'm going to pop the iPad on the screen and log in from an iPad view so we can do the walk essentially in a moment. But I just want to mention, really, I'm going to see 4 staff. So I'm in the classroom between 5 and 15 minutes, I would suggest. I would talk to the staff and we would agree, because this Nautilus is a leadership platform, not just for a head teacher, but also for all leaders. So they can do their learning walks, they can assign them, they can create them, they can set them up as well. It doesn't need to be me that does that. It's not top down. I would emphasize really at the beginning that it needs to be accurate. So in my school, I'd be saying it's not about pay and career stage. It could be, but it's about professional dialogue, and it's about improving outcomes in the classroom. It's about effective teaching and learning. And I would be saying to the staff, it's really important that it's typical, business as usual, so that the feedback is meaningful and accurate. And that is, again, a shift away from the formal observations that I talked about earlier, which may be longer but less accurate. And again, that goes back to that thorough is not the same as effective, doesn't it? And so schools are looking for solutions for learning walks, but wondering whether or not they can make that transition, because there's an element of risk, I guess, and people feel like if they go to do learning walks that they're less rigorous or thorough or accurate. In actual fact, because we're going to do them 10-minute exercises, lighter touch across the year, we're building up a picture, and we're creating professional dialogue more regularly, not target setting, but making suggestions and recommendations, aren't we, and advising where needs be. So 4 people, it could be done in an hour, but in actual fact, they don't expire. So it could be done over a week if I was a Senko. If I was early years, it could be done over 2 days, because we want to look at continuous provision, drop in, drop out, and so on. So I'm going to move across to my device now and log in. So this runs, as I mentioned, through any internet browsers. And then as I go to my walks here, you can see there's my 4 visits ready. Now, what you will see now is not revolutionary, because it derives from the way that we did things in school. But in actual fact, there's some really key things in the design of our Learning Snapshot that I think lend themselves to working more efficiently and accurately. And they look like little things, really, but in actual fact, they're quite significant, such as the language and so on. So if I pop in to see Charles, then we've got here a rubric and a framework. You can edit this, you can change it. And I would always suggest at the beginning, every school is different. When we were in special measures, we had to be very, very rigorous about good and less than good teaching. We agreed that in order to get some quick improvements. Once we were stable, the language changed and so on. So what we're trying to do with this is get a good balance of challenge and support, bearing in mind that subject leaders are working with their colleagues, and it's not an approach that is about appraisals and career stage. It's an approach that's all about professional development. So here we've just got 4 lines of inquiry. And we do a webinar on this one itself, because it's really interesting when you start to look at how this works. But because there's 4 areas, that makes it quicker. If we had 10, we'd have to be in the classroom longer. Okay, so think carefully when it comes down to the design of the work that you do.
Can I just add to that, David? I think
yeah.
we're looking at here at making 4 judgments. I mean, and I go back to being a head teacher, doing observations and things, David, when I would have 2 pages of A4 of things I was looking for one objective. And I'd spend most of my time not engaging in what's going on and what I'm listening or watching, but actually finding the right thing that will fit what I've just seen.
Exactly.
And it was just, it was I won't say a waste of time, but it was a waste of time in terms of concentrating on the wrong thing, therefore not being as accurate as I needed it to be.
So if we went into here and we had descriptors from inspection frameworks, if we had teacher standards and things like that, we are then looking at compliance here. We're looking to see, to validate, are they doing that? It's a checklist exercise. That's really different, because what you're looking to do there is standardize and stabilize the teaching in school. You might do that if you're failing, but in actual fact, if your school is fairly secure, then in actual fact, we need to do more than that. So here, it's much more about feedback and less about compliance. So the teacher is benefiting. So when the door opens and somebody comes in, we need them to be able to think, actually, this is useful. So here, 4 areas, keeps it nice and lean, means we can be in fairly quickly and out. And obviously we can do it, like I say, over time, and then build a picture in the background rather than do it 3 times a year for an hour each time. So here I'm saying that the children are engaged, and I'm now going to put in a couple of sentences to highlight what the teacher does to engage the children. So every teacher will be different. It's not for me to dictate that everybody needs to do this, and this, as you mentioned, David. I want to see, it could be the relationships, could be the pitch of the curriculum, there could be a big experiment in the classroom, it could be the resourcing, all of those things, humour, seating arrangements, positive reinforcement, who knows? But every teacher will be different. So we're looking to acknowledge that, and we're looking again for those channels for recognition. And I would say, are these 4 things, I'd be looking at 3 things to be able to say, this is good, love this, or whatever. Unless we're dealing with competency. And again, that's where it differs, and we're looking at kind of working in a different way, but we can use that equally as much. Develop. You mentioned the term judgment there. I mean, I think I'm going to pick up on that one, David, because I think that's almost become like a habit, hasn't it, that we talk about that in some sense? Because I think when we're talking about this, we're talking about evaluating teaching and learning. So I think there's an opportunity to talk to staff and say, that's what we're doing. It's about evaluating the effectiveness of teaching and learning, and make a distinction, as opposed to judging teachers, which is what it used to be. And I think that sometimes it's a legacy that we've got, and changing the language can be useful as well. So it's interesting that we can do that, and there's an opportunity here to be able to do that, I guess. So develop. So here we've got 2 actions. So that's, again, a slight change, but it's really developmental. Then we've got effective and highly effective, but 2 actions. So it's proactive and supportive. And as a subject leader, I can give my colleague a suggestion or some advice here. And I think we always talk about, David, the fact that we're teaching 9 subjects in primary or whatever, or all these different things. We need to put teachers in a position where they feel comfortable to say that they do some things well and some things less well, don't we?
Yes. I mean, if it'd be my worst nightmare for you to come and watch my dance lesson, primarily because probably what I'm wearing. But, we don't do everything brilliantly, whether if you're a really great dancer and, that's what you do in your spare time and that's your passion, and you're coming in to me, actually, we can reverse that slightly, and I can be thinking, this is an opportunity for me under a very relaxed atmosphere to get some pointers, some quick wins. What can I do to me? Because if I'm not delivering a great lesson, there's one person that knows that, and that's me. And I don't want that. I've never met a teacher that's gone into school saying, I want to lower standards today. But my dance lessons probably were on the verge of doing that. But that's what I want. I want that opportunity for someone to say, I loved how you did this here. I think you might get better results just by tweaking that and trying this. Have you thought of this? And I think that's a great opportunity for me to get better and to feel better about my own teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. So with this, there is a whole kind of, I think, there's a whole theory, some really key principles that are really important alongside this work that we're doing here, to really reinforce some good things and revisit things without compromising on rigor or thoroughness or whatever. Sometimes we might have to prioritize things. I mean, if you've moved from year 6 to year 1, you've got a learning curve. Let's acknowledge that. Let's not just put a teacher in that situation and not provide the support. If somebody, career stage dependent, we may have things to pick up on, and we come back to that. But largely, I guess, in most schools, it's going to be about acknowledging good practice and still being able to give advice. So here it could be effective, but I could be making a suggestion, offering a next step so that something could be highly effective. So again, we're using next steps rather than areas for improvement or targets or objectives, because it is about sort of like a conversation, isn't it? Management and organization. So if you like these 4 areas, we've got behavior, teaching, learning, and outcomes. That's why this learning snapshot is really good for any lesson, any subject, any school. And I think it's a really good blueprint for getting people to think in a certain way and to promote efficiency. Again, for the reasons we've mentioned. So management and organization, arguably subject knowledge. So in here, we're looking at the planning, the modeling, the use of ICT, the resourcing, whatever it may be, the pitch, the pace, the progression, everything you've worked on in the curriculum. We're just guiding the observers. So everybody, once they pick up an iPad and go, we're just guiding them in the right, to look in the right areas and to pick up on the key things. But everything fits within this. We were talking to a school yesterday that was, doing some work around retrieval or questioning. So how is that accommodated? How is the teacher applying that? How is it planned and prepared? That we could be looking at. So we can weave in those priorities in there as well, or we can be on the lookout for them, can't we? If I was doing this as a head teacher, I'd be looking out for the things that I was talking about last week when we rolled out the plan. Learning, so acquisition and application of skills only ever needs to be either or both. That's how simple it can be. Now, we've worked and sometimes done these observations and drop-ins and things, and I've had those big descriptors, but does it need to be any more complex than that? I would say not. And it's all relative to your school, but acquisition and application. So again, we're creating a common language for our leaders to go into the classroom, and we're enabling them to be able to kind of be guided in the right direction. We can also pause it, so we can come back later if we want to look at the outcomes in books. We don't have to spend an hour in the classroom to look at the progress. We could be in there for 10 minutes, then come back and look at some books, for maybe even for key groups or pupils and things like that. Value, we use this term here. So it's really, again, about evaluating the effectiveness of teaching and learning. But we're looking here at basically a summative statement. So being able to come out of the room and say, I think that. But rather than use progress, attainment, achievement, ARE, all those kind of things, which are all fairly contentious, they can become a pass or fail exercise, because we could be talking about national averages or numerical thresholds or inspection sort of descriptors. So rather than doing that, we're using value, which is intentionally subjective. So it enables a leader to be able to say, I think, or try this. And we are, again, talking about the effectiveness of teaching and learning. We can use a stylus as well. So whilst we're doing this learning snapshot, whilst we're in the classroom, what we've done here is we've got some analysis. So we've got a rubric in the background that's giving us data that can, help us to build a picture over time. It helps us to be consistent in the classroom. It also means that we can get some analysis that can inform our strategic planning and our next steps in our areas for development, as well as our strengths. We're also getting some feedback same day, so we're putting that in nice and quickly. I would say only 1 or 2 sentences, very light touch, so that we can keep the feedback efficient as well and keep things moving. So there's lots of things happening at the same time, and this is where it's much better than using a clipboard or a piece of paper or even a Google Doc, which is still standalone. It's not going into a bigger picture. It's only a one-off event. The rubric as well, I would like to say let's use a blank piece of paper, but you're going to be really inconsistent. I mean, unless you've got one person doing everything forever, ultimately we're missing something. So if we create a rubric, it can guide and support, but again, it's about that subtle use of language. It's about talking to the team, and it's about working together as well on some of the priorities and agreeing things. But the other thing that we can do, David, and we're going to shift across to the gallery fairly swiftly, is we can take pictures. So do you want to just sort of talk a little bit about the fact that this is not about sort of just a nice portfolio of work, although it definitely is that? And let's talk a little bit really about what we're looking for when we're in the classroom.
Yeah, well, I think this key word here, David, is efficiency. This is one thing we can do as leaders when we're out and about in school, in classrooms, no matter whether we're the head teacher or a subject leader or a phase leader, is to be able to gather the evidence. Let's capture the evidence at the moment that it's happening. And here, when you're using Nautilus, either a book study or a learning walk, you will always see the attached image. And this is where you can toggle the camera on your device, and you can take an image of whatever it might be that's in front of you, whether it's a display that's in the classroom, some amazing writing that you found that the children have done, some resources that have been used well, or something that's been written on a whiteboard, anything like that. We can take a picture and you can tag that image, because any pictures that are taken are going to end up in the gallery, which David has said we'll have a look at shortly. But all these images, you've got the chance to label them. And it's really important that we think about how we label these as a school. So you can see David is, obviously his image is being projected to us, so we're not seeing the camera active there, but you can see from his tags that he's tagged this image English, Year 4, Writing, Expected Standard, Non-Fiction and Pupil Premium. And there's an opportunity to write a comment there should you wish. And, you know, I like the way that this shows or demonstrates or whatever it might be. And you can quickly add that into the gallery, and it's labeled and tagged so that these are searchable. We can filter through them. We can start looking at the evidence for our subject area, or an evidence for the quality of work or outcomes in a certain area or subject. And it's a really great way to tackle the efficiency, and also have everything in the same place. Because as we look at the gallery, what it will show you is that things are not scattered across a server on that the dreaded T drive. Yeah. They're in one place, they're labeled, and you can have a look through them. And that's a really great way to start that journey of efficiency, David, in terms of being able to action things as they are happening when you are out and about in school.
Yeah, just to add to that, David, just so we've got a really clear sense of purpose when we're going into the classrooms. And as David mentioned, the tags are significant here. I would always tag by subject, then year group, then the area of study, and you will have your own areas that you've created. So you can create your own tags if you've got mini beats or outer space or whatever wacky names you've given it. Expected standard. The reason why I'm looking for expected standard is I can take a picture that shows then in the gallery. We can look at year 1, year 2. We can look at the progression. If you've got 2 form, 3 form entries, we can look at the learning across there in that sense. So it helps us to build a map of the outcomes in the gallery that we're going to take a look at in a minute. But that's what I would be looking for. And I'd be saying to my staff, we're on the lookout for best practice. And I know that we've got colleagues with us today from special ed. This is where you're taking pictures as well of some of that really critical progress. So we'll look at send outcomes in the gallery in a moment, because it's all relative. So you're tagging those things with those outcomes and being sort of specifying why that's good practice. And when I say good practice, it doesn't mean top of the class, because it's about progress and outcomes. So it can be the least, you know, the children in the class with the greatest needs, but make the most progress, where we can capture and take those pictures. So we're going to come back to that in a minute and really kind of make a few good points there. I won't send that in because it's a blank picture. Entry complete, and that means that then on my learning walk here, my learning snapshot, I've got 3 visits left. So I can do them in an hour. You can see that I used to say to my staff, if you can get me out of the classroom in 5 minutes, it was a joke, by the way, then basically I'm suitably assured, and I can see things quickly. And I think it's good for staff to be able to feel that way, where they can promote and show when you walk in, there's your plan, this is what we're doing. Feel free to ask any questions. I think that really gave me an insight when I was in class, and it helped my staff to be able to really promote what they did, not to mention to manage inspections really well. And as a school improvement partner, that's some advice I've given to schools, and it's really helped them to move sometimes gradings. That one that I've done, by the way, is I can go back and edit it still. I can work it on it if I want to get the language just right. So it's complete, but it's not finite. And I can email it to a colleague as well if I just want to forward it on. We work with some schools in Dubai that have 4,000 staff. So being able to do that is useful, but we'll show you some other ways, as we mentioned at the beginning, where we can take a look at really good feedback. So that's the Learning Snapshot. We mentioned at the beginning that we're going to just take a quick look at a book study. I would say that once you've got a really good Learning Snapshot in place in your school, a book study is a really key opportunity. Let me just put the dates in there. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. But it's a really great opportunity to get the maximum impact from a small amount of leadership management time. We give that leadership management time. It's our premium. How does it impact? It's really hard. And quite often we need to make sure for our teachers who are class-based and have those responsibilities, that time is, in that hour, they've got something tangible to take away that they can use. We've got to really think about their workload. So I would argue this is the best use I've come across for using maximizing the time that we have for leadership management. David, again, whilst I just sort of key things in here, do you just want to talk through how I'm setting up this learning this book study, because I'm looking specifically at the expected standard on this occasion?
Yeah, a couple of things that we'll see. Once you've set one of these up, like the Learning Snapshot, you'll be familiar with how to set up other ones as well. The only difference here is in the survey, we're looking for, you'll have a selection of various different forms you can select. The book study one is simply called book study.
Yeah.
So select that. Select
I'm
the
just going to
subject
mention very quickly, David, as well. Sorry to interrupt.
Right.
I just want to show this to show that the areas of learning and expertise from the Welsh curriculum are also integrated into the system. We work with a lot of Welsh schools now, and we've developed the platform with them. So as those things have come along in the Welsh curriculum, we've also integrated those into the system. So because we're working with schools in Wales, Dubai, Kenya, China, wherever it may be in the world, it's really important that we're looking at the quality of teaching and learning. And in that sense, it makes it very easy to be able to apply it in different ways wherever you are. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah. I mean, we do. Yeah. So you look through there and you'll see various options. And if you're a Welsh school, there's a lot there for you as well. Again, we're really focusing on expected. And that's something really, even outside of Nautilus, just in terms of school improvement, if we can, as teachers and leaders, nail what the expected is, then obviously that has a knock-on effect and knowledge of what above expected is, exceeding, and obviously what might be below. So we do advise that we really focus on that expected standard to start with. Once that's been created, we're going back into it and we're going to assign it. So here I'm thinking the typical thing I would be doing, David, is, I've asked for a certain number of books to come in now. Because I'm looking at expected, I've only asked for expected books, maybe 3 from a few teachers. I'm not looking for below expected and above, so I'm ending up with 9 books per teacher. You end up with a pile of 40 books on your desk. Not efficient in terms of the time that we have. So I'm really nailing the expected. I've asked for 4 teachers to give me 3 examples of their expected books, and I've got them scattered over my table here, and I've been able to assign these. So I'm taking the books of Clovis, Ernest, Impey, and Lillian there, and it's ready to go. And at this point, again, like I said before, you set it up and you can leave it if this is next week's activity, and you can then come to it in your walks area. It's added automatically to your to-do list. And I'll just mention at this point, David, that if you're doing this with a colleague and you're assigning it to yourself, but you're also saying, it's not just me that's going to be observing. I've got the English lead from the school down the road, or from the trust, maybe the English leader or something like that. I can assign it to them as well if I've added them as a user to the system. And when they go to their their walks area, it's already loaded for them as well.
Yeah.
Which makes it, a lot simpler.
Yeah, and I think that where schools will have their priorities this year, such as writing, those opportunities will occur. But being able to invite them in and do it this way, I've gone into schools and done this with their maths lead, in actual fact, and we've done books together, and it's been 35 minutes. but it's been quite thorough. It's been a piece of moderation, quite possibly, maybe for a year group, but you get the idea as to how we can work in this way, and again, work with those partners. Thanks for sharing that one, David. So here you can see, I'm on my desktop here. I've got I'm doing one entry per teacher, not per book. As David mentioned, it's going to be more insightful. I might come back to some groups later, but I want to map out that expected standard. So I want to be able to take pictures and evaluate what standards look like between classes, across cohorts, and between year groups, key stages as well. So we're looking for that. And I will show as well, we have got a send adapted one, which is really about progress, but individual progress, which is relative to children rather than age-related progress. So there's some shifts there that we can do where we can do this for pupils with additional needs, where it, for children with SEND, where we can measure progress, but it doesn't have to be in keeping with those national expectations. So again, we can create frameworks that derive from this as well. Okay, so if I take a look at Ernest's books, and again, we've got this common language now, and we've got lines of inquiry and prompts. So we've only got 6 things to look at. You'll see it's really lean. Presentation, so we're looking here at the application of your policy. It's not about us to tell anybody how to present the work. Every school will be different, but we're looking at the impact. We can see how that looks in the books. Is the objective in the right place? Handwriting, layout, whatever it may be. And again, things like science will differ, but in some ways, same but different. Content, age-appropriate program of study. So in this instance, we're looking to see, after that construction of your curriculum, after you've created it, we're self-evaluating here in the classroom, the impact and the delivery and the teaching. So the preparation, how it's been, the pitch, the pace, the progression. So again, it's giving all of your leaders really kind of a little nudge to say, take a look at this. And that's what we're intended to do. Pupil contributions, regular and sustained application. This is one that used to drive me a little bit nuts. And the reason why we put this in our framework here is we wanted to make clear, that sufficient time on task to secure the objects. We talked about acquisition and application. But if the children have only got 25 minutes then to have a go, or 20 minutes, it may not be long enough. There sometimes needs to be time where they've got 30 minutes or 20 minutes, a little minor, a chunk in the lesson, and then that extra bit. But are we leaving things half-baked, or are we seeing that, that objective secure in the book? So it's interesting to look at that one. Progress on the day. So there's your objective. Did they make that progress? We can see that first page to last page. If we want to look across the year, Monday to Friday, or for a topic, look at the progress and see over time. At the end of the year, you get some really magical progress, but quite often we send the books home. So we could take those pictures and use that for the next year to share with everyone. Challenge, and remind me, David, just after we've looked at this, we're going to look at the gallery. I want to go straight into that now. Challenge and support. So here we're looking at, challenge and extension, breadth of the curriculum, marking and feedback there as well. So marking and feedback, again, the impact or application of your policy, however that looks in the books. I'm going to make the next step here, and I'm just going to show you again a quick shortcut because I really like this one. I think it's a nice little suggestion. So I'm just going to right click and show you the voice type. I really like the way that you've marked the children's books, full stop. Why not feedback to the whole class at the beginning of the next lesson to cover the common misconceptions? And what do we say, David? If it handles the Bradford accent, then the tech is getting pretty good, isn't it?
It is, yeah. If it understands the broadest Bradfordian accent around, then yes, it will handle everything. And we found, it's remarkable now. To be honest, when voice recognition first came in, David, it was very clunky. But over these years, it's become so accurate. All different accents are recognised, and it's a massive time saver. Research suggests, David, it's 11 times quicker to voice type than to actually physically type.
Yeah, and again, it's about just making those little shifts. That's right clicking to be able to do that. And obviously on your iPad or tablet, you've got a button that does it. I would be inclined to do my learning walks because you're only putting 1 or 2 sentences in there as you're going along. I'd be inclined to tap that button and just do it, narrate into it, because I think now we're beyond worrying about these things, and we're recognizing that in actual fact, time is really critical and workload. So again, this is why there's zero reporting to do. This is why subject leaders will really like it. And again, we're building up a portfolio. We're creating dialogue, and we're going to share that the same day. This essentially means that we can share it quicker because we're cutting out the reporting, which is normally, the big barrier to good feedback. Okay, I'll be taking pictures, by the way, here of the expected standard, because that's what this book study is. So I would be taking those pictures of all the different genres in the book, tagging it by subject, year group, expected standard, and or send or pupil premium. And here you can see I'm making a suggestion because it's effective, but I'm saying you could try this, and it could be highly effective. So again, the next step is very developmental, and we can prioritize that by checking that box. We can come back to that as well in the feedback and prioritize that nice and quickly. We can also make a commendation, which you can use if you're looking at our collaborative appraisal tools. So it feeds that into the system as well, so you can share commendations together. But I'll put that into the system, and as you get the idea now, that means that I've got those 3 outstanding there left to do. Let's take a look at the gallery, because I think it's a good time, really, before we look at the data or consider anything else, which we'll do sort of fairly swiftly. I think it's really important, because we've talked a lot about the gallery, to be able to sort of appreciate exactly what the possibilities are, David. So if I can just hand over to you while I just sort of go back a little bit and filter, because I've got some nice work in here to show really that that's retrospective.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll make no excuses here that it is my favorite feature of the entire platform. And it's my favorite feature because I didn't have it when I was ahead, and it would have made a massive difference.
Or you have that folder on the server full of pictures, the Skipton Castle ones.
Oh, the 2014 Skipton Castle Year 2 trip. Yeah, that's what we had. And to have this at my fingertips, or for my teachers and leaders to have this at their fingertips, because the gallery is open to everybody, no matter what permission level you are given, whether you are a user, which might be your school governors being a user. And I just think about that your governors have access to all this range of evidence of outcomes, to your school leaders as well. And what we've got here is everything that's been taken over all the different subjects from all your different staff once they're using this. We've got a raft of examples of the wonderful stuff that's happening, or the outcomes that are happening in your school. And the key here, David, you can see here, David's gone into the search bar and is searching tags now. Yes, we have a filter system, but here we can specifically search for tags, and he's tagged, the search he's gone for is writing. And what that is doing is bringing up all images that have been tagged with writing. So as you can see here, we've got various different examples from maybe story maps that children are working on for Taught for Writing. It might be a display you can see on the right-hand side there, which actually is interesting, David, because that display was actually taken by the history lead, who tagged it writing, because it's a display that is showcasing writing outcomes in Year 4 in the subject of history. But because they've tagged it writing, it's helping out the writing lead because it's showcasing that in the writing tag as well. And so you can find we've got this kind of cross-pollination approach where we can all support each other and gather the evidence and share it. And same with SEND. Now, David did mention earlier on that with SEND, we may not be relying on the same evidence in terms of test results and test scores. But here you've got examples. I just love these pictures. Pictures of children being proud of their outcomes is just worth its weight in gold. And so we've got here, you know, pictures of whiteboards, which would be rubbed off because the iPad or the tablet has that camera. You can take it at the point of when something is happening, which is going to be there forever. You've got a child there who's just run up the corridor to show you their little DT model because they've been proud of it. And because you had your iPod in your hand, quick image, in it goes. And it's a really great way to showcase the evidence. And you can start to think now, David, we've had schools who have developed their use of gallery in really innovative ways. In terms of subject leadership, that subject leaders are feeling or getting into the gallery and starting to use it as a bit of a portfolio, showcasing what examples of outcomes look like to support things like if you are having a deep dive or those types of conversations. What do the history outcomes look like across your school? Well, here you go. You've got examples here. What's expected history or expected art in year 2? And it's really powerful because, you know, the people might ask the children, they might want to collect work in, but here we are on the iPad. Here's the examples. And you have been in control of what has gone in here, showcasing the very best of what might be expected across your school. I love this, David. I've made no secret about that in terms of the impact it can have on efficiency and accuracy, getting back to what we were really looking at the beginning. And I really do think it's a valuable piece of software development. That
you mentioned one thing, David, there about outcomes. So what is the impact of your curriculum? I was reading a report yesterday for a school, and it was one of the queries was how well do subject leaders know the impact of their curriculum? Now, we've got data and test scores. It's one indicator. But in actual fact, the impact of your curriculum here, and again, this is where it's interesting because it could be any kind of setting. You need to know what the impact is. The better placed you are to know the impact of your curriculum, the more informed you are to make recommendations and strategic sort of suggestions about where you need to head next. So it's really knowing your school really well, isn't it? It's knowing what those outcomes look like. And I think this is what this can do. Just to mention quickly as well, you can add content directly to the system. And I love this because this is where teachers can really celebrate and share. So if you said next week, we're going to focus on science, please can you submit expected standard from books, a pupil premium book, for example, and a picture of the children learning the practical stuff. Then your science lead can come in at the end of the week and they can just take a look and quality assure without having to go in the classrooms. So they would be able to, and the leaders, the teachers can submit that. So it's really sort of lovely to be able to kind of share in that sense, in that way. And I think this is really, there's some very significant things that this can offer. And again, it's communal, so as David mentioned, governors and so on. So let's take a little look at the different sort of feedback approaches. So whilst we've focused very much today on the capturing, and today's session is called Don't Observe, Capture, we have really looked at that capturing, but how can we do justice to the process by making sure that the feedback is good? So I'm moving across to the blue buttons now, and I'm going to show you the workflow first of all, which is just basically a list of different activities here you can see. And if I click the next steps, it shows me all the next steps that I've highlighted. And you can see here, this one where I'd use the voice type. I can now share this with my colleague, have a chat, and then check this off to say it's been shared. But basically what it's doing is it's providing a feed. So from my learning walk, it's plucking out all of the commentary and enabling me to be able to take my iPad or laptop and have a chat the same day. So it's nice and quick. It's light touch, it's collaborative, it's non-judgmental, and it's about sharing those conversations nice and quickly on the same day. There's no judgments or anything like that on there. And like I say, I can prioritize my conversations using that little checkbox to identify the next steps. As a head teacher, I can see everything coming into here. So that enables me to see what my leaders are discussing, the areas I can even contribute to it as a third party. But there's no point where everybody gets feedback automatically. This is about leaders and sharing those conversations and then managing that feedback themselves. That's a great way. That was designed really to promote collaboration and to be very efficient, because it's taking all that feedback, and when we click the next steps button, distilling it down. But we can create actions and things like that, which as leaders help us to really sort of work intuitively when it comes down to the conversations. This idea that everybody gets 3 hours regardless of career stage, and everybody gets the same sort of time for feedback, is not intuitive. It's thorough again, but arguably less effective than spending 10 minutes here and 20 minutes here and 5 minutes here where needs must across the school. And again, I think it's interesting to kind of consider those things at this point. So here's the dashboard. Everything's coming into here. Like I mentioned, this is my year so far. A little bit of interpretation. Let's look at all time. So this is what means that we've got a more thorough picture building up in the background. And because everything from all of our team is coming into one place. So for the beauty of it for me as a head is I'm able to see all of the work going on and taking place. And you can see there, I've got 2 surveys. I've got to learn the book study and everything else that's in progress at the minute. On the system, by the way, we've looked at 2 surveys today. We've looked at the snapshot and the book study, but there's 10. So there's everything from phonics, AFL, behaviour. They're all similar designs, as well as 2 surveys, a parent survey, a pupil survey, and we can send out links and do surveys there and create our own. That means that we get our stakeholder views on the dashboard as well. But I'm conscious of time, but just wanted to mention that just funnels everything into one place: parents' views, children's views, staff views, my views, all into one place, which is a really rich base, really, for kind of informing that strategic direction as well. So here you can see this score here, by the way, 3.17 is a relative score for my school. It's not assigned to a judgment. One is low, 4 is high. It's just kind of taking the rubric, creating an average. That just gives me a benchmark. And that means using that, I can see how each individual walk and an event activity, what the outcome is on each one, just at a glance. So you don't have to drill down, filter, find. It's not about data and test scores and doing that 3 times a year. This is about seeing things quickly. I've got a flight path, so I can see here over time how that looks. I can also see the overall outcomes from everything going into the system, along with all of the different frameworks that we're using here. Mine's a demo account, so there's an awful lot of things that we cover, but those are the kind of things here. If I just wanted to look at the current year, you'll see the ones that we're using at the minute there, which are just sort of 5 different tools. So if we then come into here, then we can apply the filters. So if I come in and filter by English, for example, we can see the portfolio of English work that's taking place. We could tap into that. And that's what my English lead would see if they were that middle leader. We could come into here and down here we could see that my English leader is using a book study, Learning Snapshot, Phonics Snapshot, and a combined snapshot. So they're using 4 different tools. 2 is enough. And when we do our subject leadership webinars, we generally focus on the subject leadership toolkit. I'm going to come in and just take a little look at a report. So I'm going to just key in there key stage 2 and just bring up a report that we've done already. So here, 3.04, so broadly in line, 20 contributions. And then as I click into here, we can see really a very quick and simple overview of the headlines. David, do you just want to mention a little bit about how we've designed the page and, you know, the fact that it's not Fisher Family Trust or it's not kind of a data package?
Yeah, well, this is a way we can go and kind of focus in and drill down a little bit on this activity, and it gives you some headlines, so you can take as much or as little as you want from this, really, in terms of you can drill down into some quite detailed areas, and it gives you the headlines, as you can see along the top, your areas of strength for this activity, kind of a 3.2, and then you've got your attitude to learning, which is a 2.9, which is probably your area for development for that activity. It tells you who was involved, who went to see who, etc. And you've got a little radar graphic there just showing you how things are looking across the 4 areas. And as you scroll down, it'll break down into each of the questions. Now, these will be familiar to you because these are the ones that you actually were making some observations around. So you got your questions there: attitude to learning, management, organisation, and it's breaking it down into terms of where the percentages were on the observations that were made. Either you did this or a colleague had done this, and you can go and have a look at a breakdown there. You'll notice if we just scroll up, David, as well, one thing I really like up at the top there is your the PDF report function. And this is that little orange button there. Look out for that, because whenever you explore on your dashboard and you drill down, you will always see the PDF report option. And that allows you to generate, you don't have to write this, which is, again, really helping the efficiency aspect. This is taking all the work that's been done previously and crunching it into a physical report as a PDF that you can share with governors. Here's one here, and it explains exactly what the report is, who did it, when it was, area of strength, area for improvement for that report, and we'll document and go into the areas showcasing exactly what the specific observations were showing in terms of the decisions that were made, with a little graphic for each one. Governors love these. If you are wanting to prepare one for governors, you do have the option to anonymize these, and we do recommend that if you are sharing it for full governing body meetings, which will have no reference to staff, year groups, etc. But we'll just give you a great overview as a PDF for what the headlines were for that activity. And it's a great, you don't have to type these, David. These are all built in, generated a touch of a button. As you can see there, it does highlight the comments that have been made as well, just giving a little bit more context in terms of how we're using this information.
I mean, the whole idea is, the top half is that we've got some strategic insights, quality of education. It's showing here we've got the contextual picture on the right hand side, so that's the bigger picture with all of the activities. This one is this occasion. This is a SEND learning walk, by the way. It's a SEND evaluation. And so the top half we can share, and as David mentioned, we could say this is good, this is good, this is good, we're going to work on this. And then on the bottom half we can work our magic with the staff. And here you can see it's structured in a very thorough way, but in actual fact our contribution, it's because of the way that it's framed, is very lean and concise. So it's presented well because you've got that context and those lines of inquiry, and then you've got those prompts for conversations here to discuss things further, and that recognition that we're building in there as well. So just 5 areas that we look at on the SEND one, which is setting, the learning, how it's been personalised, pupil support, and progress from their own individual starting points. So you can work your magic and use those however you want, share them, use them for appraisals or whatever, but more importantly, have that conversation the same day because it's available. And as David mentioned, that's the same data that we're looking at here. And this is what makes it, this score here, which is the bigger picture over time, that's more robust, that data set, because those are each activity over time that's feeding that. So that's our contextual picture, which stops it from being a standalone event. So unlike a Google Doc or anything like that, it's not just a one-off occasion. We're building that big picture and together with our colleagues. Also a little bit of AI. So here, little prompt, if I click that and use the default statement, it will create a paragraph showing me the 3 areas for the strengths and areas for development in a paragraph. It's really useful for a SEF because it's grammatically very well written. I could share it with my staff. I could share it with the governors, local authority, whoever it may be. I can even sort of reword things if I want to do. Things like this, I really like being able to kind of create a different tone for whatever the audience. So you can create and find out what you want. But that report is about 30 pages long, and you can see there how this is now some lovely insights into student engagement. It's kind of the way that it does that the AI, I think, is really sort of, can be really
Well,
useful.
I spent way too long on that the other day, David. I end up, can you give me some improvements in the style of a haiku? And it did
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Right. Well, I mean, it's really helpful, isn't it? So obviously we're building this picture, and we started at the beginning about probably from a head teacher's point of view. This is for a priority user, building up that picture and knowing what your teaching and learning looks like. And I think if you're accountable for standards in teaching and learning, you need to know this. And yes, before now we've had to draw upon lots of evidence sources to kind of have it. So we wanted to kind of create a profile where you could see all of our staff, but to make it really sort of meaningful, if you like. If I want to look now at my English, I can now see what the outcomes look like there. And this might be a teacher here, basically, who has moved year group or is an ECT or whatever. So that enables me to see who needs support, and we can use this formatively in the classrooms, as well as being able to see best practice and so on. So this data is really helpful to be able to work intuitively when it comes down to teaching and learning, rather than doing domain analysis from test scores and then applying it to the year group afterwards, when the year sixes have gone, then to the next year. So it's all relative. And again, I think if you're we talked about the English there, but if we're looking at SEND or additional learning needs in Wales and so on, we can then bring this up, and we can see that Ernest needs a bit of support because he might have a pupil who's been previously excluded, or a child who's just arrived with autism. So there's all kinds of things that there's a story behind that, but there's a conversation there for me as a head teacher to sit with my Senko and say, what can we do about this? And there's so many different ways to use this formatively, I guess. And the same way we've got flight paths. So if I want to come into here, my school's a bit chaotic, but if I come in and look at the book studies, I can filter by book studies, English, maths, and so on, and also see the staff contributions there as well, bearing in mind after each one that people have had feedback. So that rolling dialogue has occurred. I don't need to necessarily meet twice a year to look at appraisals, because I know that these things, I may do, but these things are occurring across the year. So there's lots of things, really, I suppose, when we were looking, David, originally and talking about how we're working, that device really, just from getting into classes and that very simple framework, is really feeding a bigger picture and a bigger system on the dashboard. The other thing that I'm going to come across to now, just before we start to kind of offer some other things, is the builder. So the green button there is where you can create content. You know your school better than us, but we have in here this bank of frameworks that, like I say, we've already added. So including the parent's voice, including the pupil surveys too. And so you've got a good array of things that are designed, again, to guide and not dictate how to run a school or how to teach a lesson. But if you said, well, we really like your Learning Snapshot, we want to change this one, then you could do. And as you do that, like so, we can create a clone of that one, and then we could come back into here and we can edit that one. We can also share it between schools. So just mentioning down here, we've got some of the Welsh content. So the schools in Anglesey that have been making content in Welsh as well, and then sharing it. So you can share and you can import. Then you can create content between groups of schools together, or clusters, maps, whatever it may be, whatever the arrangement may be. A good example as well I always show is the learning support. So this was one that was created to go into school and look at sort of the quality of support. We spend a lot of money on it. So you can see here 3 lines of inquiry. The support staff chose those. We had a meeting, then we did the learning walk, then they got the feedback the same day. We had the data and reports to be able to use as well. We took some pictures, highly positive, enabled them to feel valued, and gave them some feedback, which was framed, obviously, as you would want it to be. So that was a really good exercise in a big school where I did it with the head teacher and all of the support staff too. Okay, so pausing for breath over here on the settings, really just sort of all the controls, really, I guess, to be able to get the best out of the system. And here we recognize that every school is different, whether or not that's geographical or whether or not that's to do with the setting or the community, but every school is different. So you can change the terms here if you want that we've used. So the evaluation statements, if you want to do, that's up to you. If you did want to put the inspectorate in there, then fine. But you can see here, those are the terms and colour schemes. There's opportunities there if you like. Tech support, same day. So even if you're using the trial, will help and advise and support. Use a guide really so that you can pick it up and go with it. We want to make sure that you can just get going with the system. We want to make the tech as easy as possible, and we can provide support for the system as well. We'll come back to that in a minute. And over here with FAQ tutorials, we've got a good, substantial library now, so that staff can access these things, previous webinars, short and long sessions, and quick fixes and how-tos as well. So there's lots of things in there because we recognize that when you start to use the system, implementing it it's really critical that you get that support and that you're able to do that nice and efficiently. And we'll come back to that in a moment. You can also add the school logo, personalize it, and you can see here there's our new 360. So we've got some additional tools. If people want to take a look at those as well, they can do. They can just learn more if they want to do, and we can send some links out for that. But that just enables you to integrate your appraisals with Nautilus. So you're able to take all of the commendations, all the reports, and then just use them to upload to an online portfolio. So it aligns with your workload rather than, again, being an additional bolt-on job, which appraisals sometimes can be, can't they? There can be a conversation that we have twice a year, but other than that, may not sort of steer anything that you do in school. So over at our website, David, we're really big on the platform being a part of the work you do and helping schools. Everything we've done here is in the interest of kind of helping them really to kind of consider how to work efficiently and accurately. Do you want to just pick up on a couple of the things that we can offer from the website?
Yeah, now I did put in the chat. Now, for those who are with us today live, the chat function is live. For those of you, and there'll be many of you, we know we've got nearly 100 registered. So looking at the video, you won't see the chat. So this bit's important for you guys. That we do, David and I spend much of our week working with schools or showcasing with schools, working with SLTs on demos, one-to-one demos. We love doing that because we get to showcase this in your setting where you can, we're learning a little bit more about your school and the journey. We can tailor that to you. So there is a book a demo button there. And if you're interested in David or myself coming and having an hour with your SLT, we love doing that. You can simply click the button and you can book a date and a time which suits you. And we will do the rest. We'll be in touch with you with links, etc. for that. And we can go through the platform, answering any questions for your specific setting as and when you want to raise them. There is a 30-day trial, which is the button next to that, which is a fully working trial. There's no credit cards or anything needed. David, I hate that whenever I want to do a trial, but then I need to submit credit cards, and I don't even do that. I walk away at that point. So all we need from you for the trial is basically your email address, and you can be up and running with a full working trial with full tech support within 30 seconds. So you can do that there. We really pride ourselves on the community aspect of what we've built. We've got, you'll see there on the right-hand side, a really great Facebook group full of school leaders, many using Nautilus, some not doing, but this is basically all school leadership related discussions. We've got various people on there who are adding to that and talking around certain things, but it's also a place where we do make updates and share with you updates, and it might be a new form that's been built in Welsh, or it might be a new form that's been built that will go there, and we'll share that with you, like the Oracy snapshot there that you can see. There's a files section where you can download the actual forms and then upload it into your builder on the Nautilus platform. So as you can see, loads are there.
Mm.
And that's a great thing about the community, is that we share those, and people do share these and how they've used them and ask questions. So if you are on Facebook, please do give it a like and join it. There's some wonderful things and tools and things being shared on there, which is great. You'll also see that there's the latest newsletters that we've got, full of articles written, some to do with Nautilus, some to do with general school improvement things, but a really good concise articles there around school leadership. So worth having a look at that. And they're quite concise. We've got quite extensive. We've got interviews with people. There's a back catalogue of newsletters as well that you can see. Also, every week, myself and David are doing these webinars. They are free. And there's a back catalogue of those for all the different subject areas, for many different roles in schools. And we've got a lot coming up as well on a weekly basis. So if you are, you've got a SEND colleague, we have SEND webinars coming up. We've got subject leaders. So if you're a head teacher thinking, how can we develop school leadership to be a little bit more, or subject leadership to be a little bit more strategic, a little bit more efficient and accurate, get people signed on for that. These are all free, and we do these on a weekly basis, so you can find out where they are.